Duramater.
All right, so we have the duramater, and we trimmed it down, of course, here. So this whitish layer. And specifically on the duramater, right from the midline, from that medial section, we can see the little ridge of the falx cerebri. Very small for a sheep brain. And the two longer extensions, again, these used to be tucked into the deep fissures. There's the tentorium cerebelli and the falx cerebri. Okay.
And then it jumps to the optic chiasma?
Optic chiasma.
Optic nerves.
So you can see the lump of fat here. This used to be some of the adipose that cushion the eyes. This side, the fat I just trimmed off. So you can see the optic nerves, the two optic nerves. And where the two optic nerves come together in the medial section, that's the optic chiasma.
And the pituitary gland?
Pituitary gland, here still encased in some duramater. So you see that darkened bulb right there. And again, keep in mind this would be on the inferior side of the brain here. Pituitary gland.
And the infundibulum you removed
Infundibulum we're omitting.
Arachnoid membrane.
So we removed the duramater. So at this point the brain is still encased in arachnoid mater, and I could kind of peel that up here with the probe. I would not be able to do this at all to pia mater, but to the duramater and arachnoid mater, because now I could get the probe under there slightly. Okay, and the next one.
Cerebral hemispheres.
The hemispheres, so we sliced it down the middle, and we have the two hemispheres of the telencephalon.
The cerebellum.
Cerebellum. So that posterior portion of the brain right here, cerebellum.
Cerebrum.
Cerebrum again.
With fissures and sulci.
So again, we have the longitudinal fissure. That's where we cut right down the middle. And superior to the cerebellum, there'd be a transverse fissure.
Sulci and
Sulci are sulci on the cerebrum are the small little grooves all around. So the tight, narrow grooves are sulci. And where it bulges out, the bumps on the cerebrum are all gyri.
Crista galli.
That's a skip.
Tentorium, we already went over. Then the corpus callosum.
Corpus callosum, so you have it in half. And what you can really look for now, I had many of you open up the lateral ventricle as a space of the lateral ventricle. And you can see that lighter color, the white matter just superior to the lateral ventricle, is the corpus callosum right here.
And then on the cerebellum, the vermis.
The vermis, so you have to have the two halves of the cerebellum together. And directly down the medial portion is that little bump. So it kind of looks like an earthworm, a segmented worm, that bump in the medial portion of the cerebellum is the vermis.
And the olfactory bulbs.
Olfactory bulbs. So on the inferior side, you notice right here at the anterior part of the brain, here's a good specimen of olfactory bulbs, nice and large for this animal.
And the olfactory tract.
And from the olfactory bulb, you just follow it, and it leads back to the olfactory tract. All right, so the bulb here is kind of flapping out, and then I can just follow it back to the tract on either side.
Then back to the optic chiasm.
Optic chiasm. Again, that was on this piece, right in the middle.
And the anterior border of the diencephalon.
Okay, so reaching the diencephalon, the thalamus in particular is this circular shape for a sheep. It's more oval for humans, but this big circle here is the thalamus, so we're definitely in diencephalon.
Hypothalamus.
So something else you could look for. Here's just the other portion of the optic chiasm. So when you split it in half, hanging off here is optic chiasm. You have the circular area of the thalamus, and hypothalamus is right between those two. Okay? So the circular area is thalamus, optic chiasm, and hypothalamus is right here between those two.
The pituitary gland.
Pituitary gland is right here in the center of our dura mater.
And skip mammillary body.
That was a skip.
Okay, midbrain.
Midbrain, so we're right in this area. In fact, you can see the aqueduct of the midbrain. Is that channel is the cerebral aqueduct.
And the cerebral peduncles.
So cerebral peduncles is the anterior portion of the midbrain. This anterior aspect of the midbrain, cerebral peduncles.
And the pons.
The pons, so from the cerebral peduncles, you just move down the brainstem and you see this bump sticking out right here. Again, not as large as a human structure, but that little bump inferior to the cerebral peduncles. This bump here is the pons.
And the cerebellar hemispheres.
And we slice the cerebellum in half, so the two sides of the cerebellar hemispheres.
Then the medulla oblongata.
Medulla oblongata anterior to the cerebellum, so we're now at this portion. So just to keep track, we had cerebral peduncle, pons, and then medulla oblongata. Down here, we're seeing a bit of spinal cord. Okay, so cerebral peduncles in the midbrain, the bump is the pons, medulla oblongata, and spinal cord.
The basilar artery.
That's another skip.
Mesencephalon.
Mesencephalon, again, midbrain. Just look for that cerebral aqueduct, that little channel right in this area.
With the corpora quadrigemina. Sorry.
Quadrigemina, rolls off the tongue.
Quadrigemina.
All you got to do is take the cerebellum and just pull it down slightly. Okay. Now, of course, it's already been sliced in half, so we're not going to see the 4 bulges. We'll just see 2 to each side. So pulling down the cerebellum, you can see these 2 bumps here.
And there should be the superior and inferior
And that's
colliculi.
exactly what they are. So the superior bump is a superior colliculus. The inferior bump is inferior colliculus. So superior and inferior colliculi. And all of this is just posterior to the cerebral aqueduct. So of course with the 2 sides together you have corpora quadrigemina.
And then the septum pellucidum.
Septum pellucidum, so we damaged that to open up the lateral ventricle. So that'll be a skip for septum pellucidum.
Okay. And the choroid plexus.
Choroid plexus, you could reach into the lateral ventricle and fish out. Right there is a really good example of a choroid plexus.
The fornix.
The fornix, so now starting at the corpus callosum into the lateral ventricle, and that inferior border, you're looking for the white matter, this is the fornix.
The bottom.
So the bottom part, so corpus callosum, lateral ventricle, and then fornix.
We already did thalamus, but the
Thalamus.
interthalamic adhesion.
That's another skip. So we just got a thalamus, the circular area.
Then the hypothalamus.
Hypothalamus, slightly anterior and inferior to thalamus.
The pineal gland.
Pineal gland. So that's why I really like your specimen here. You have to cut right in the center to get the pineal gland. So it's this little section that I'm lifting up here.
And it points out it's dorsal to the superior colliculus.
You see that over here.
Then you've pointed this out, but the aqueduct of the midbrain.
Aqueduct of the midbrain is that channel. So between cerebral peduncles and corpora quadrigemina is the cerebral aqueduct.
Then to the cerebellum, the arbor vitae.
Arbor vitae, you can see the white matter. That's truly what it is. And the deep branching white matter of the cerebellum is the arbor vitae.
And the neural cortex.
Neural cortex would be the gray matter either on the cerebellum, so the surface of the cerebellum, and the same for the cerebrum. You could use neural cortex in either location. Superficial gray matter.
And the folia.
Folia are the bumps on the cerebellum.
Cerebral cortex and cerebellar cortex.
So that's just distinct. Neural cortex can be applied in both areas. The gray matter at the surface of the cerebrum is cerebral cortex. Superficial gray matter over here is cerebellar cortex.
And then the distinction between folia and gyri.
Gyri are only on the cerebrum. Smaller bumps on the cerebellum are called folia.
And that's it?
That's it.
Oh. Yep.
Because that's human at the bottom.
The rest are lobe. Do you want to do
Yeah,
the...
no, those are human structures.
Okay.
So,
that's
all right,
it.
good.